Yahoo Fantasy Football, the Tucson Tackle Dummies League. This is your Week 7 recap. In the closest matchup of the week, AZ Chargers knocks off Inglorious Bearjew 112.43 to 105.97. Toro division leader AZ Chargers picks up a crucial victory this week over Bearjew thanks to a stout defensive showing. AZ Chargers scored 52.5 on the defensive side of the ball, outscoring Bearjew 52.5 to 39.5, with 4 players beating projections and 3 in double digits. All that despite leaving a defensive lineman in the lineup on a bye. The San Diego defense netted 12 for AZ Chargers, while defensive backs Quentin Michael and Eric Weddle combined for 21 points this week. Bearjew had linebacker Lance Briggs with 10.5 this week, but only one other defensive player beat projections. On the offensive side of the ball, Bearjew had the matchup's 2 highest scorers, with tight end Jimmy Graham scoring 18.9 and quarterback Matt Ryan scoring 17.92. However, Bearjew was brutal at running back this week with a combined 3.45 from Rashard Mendenhall and Ryan Terrain. Terrain actually netted negative points this week in the Redskins running back lottery, where you can't win if you don't play, and this week you couldn't win even if you did play. Meanwhile, AZ Chargers went with quarterback Colt McCoy over Phillip Rivers, and it paid off as McCoy outscored the usual starter by less than half a point this week. And wide receiver Antonio Brown and running back Steven Jackson each went for 14 and change, overcoming poor showings from wide receiver Santonio Holmes with 2.9, wide receiver Vincent Jackson with 2.75, and wide receiver Aurelius Ben with 0.2. With the win, AZ Chargers remains a game up in the Toro division at 5-2 overall, and Bearjew remains a game behind in the Wildcat division at 4-3 overall. In other close action, Mojo Jojo knocked off Wildcats 122.47 to 112.74. Aztec division-leading Mojo squeaks out a close one over Wildcats in a matchup decided just as much by personnel decisions as the scores themselves. This matchup featured a great battle at quarterback as Mojo's Aaron Rodgers outdueled Wildcats' Matt Schaub 27.4 to 20.74. Mojo added 10.65 from running back James Starks and a combined 31.9 at flex this week with Brandon LaFell and Plaxico Burris. Wildcats countered with 23.75 from running back Adrian Peterson and 18 at kicker. But what may have really settled this offensive battle was who didn't play, as Wildcats opted for wide receiver Nate Burleson at flex and got just 1.35, while tight end Heath Miller was on his bench and scored 13.5 this week. And a close battle for Mojo could have had more breathing room if he had gone with running back Montario Hardesty, who scored 13.2 on the bench for Mojo, while wide receiver Julio Jones was in the lineup, injured and out this week. Jumping to the defensive side of this battle, both teams left glaring holes on their lineups, as Wildcats had a team defense and a defensive lineman on a bye in the starting lineup, and Mojo's did the same with 2 defensive linemen on a bye. Mojo's made up for the loss in points by snagging 18 points from the Houston defense, covering the 0 points at defensive line, the 5.12 points at defensive back, and just 7 points at linebacker as a team this week. The win increases Mojo's lead in the Aztec division to 2 games, now sitting at 5-2 overall, and the loss bumps Wildcats from a share of the Cavs division lead to 4-3 overall, a game behind What the Shell and Raging Boners. Speaking of boners, Raging Boners defeats the Amazons 106.33 to 93.68. Boners extends the league's longest winning streak to 5 games after beating a hobbled Amazon squad in a low-scoring affair. Amazons had to go to battle this week without running backs Peyton Hillis and Javid Best and kicker Sebastian Janikowski, all out with injuries. Boners kept things interesting, though, by having 9 players on a bye this week, including running back Ahmad Bradshaw, wide receiver Hakeem Nicks, the San Francisco defense, and 5 individual defensive players. Boners chose not to sign fill-ins for the defensive line slot and both linebacker slots, meaning his team with the battle short 3 players. But Boners still pulled out a victory. Boners had a game-high 27.04 from quarterback Cam Newton, plus 21 points combined from Houston teammates Ben Tate and Joel Dreesen. Amazons answered with 17.85 from wide receiver Michael Jenkins, but only 2 other players hit double digits this week, and 4 players total met projections. Amazons got just 4.35 from 3 running backs, including a negative score from Carnell Williams and a 0.95 from Darren McFadden. The loss leaves Amazons 2 games back in the Aztec division at 3-4 overall, while Boner surges to a share of the Cavs division lead with What the Shell at 5-2, having not lost a game since the 0-2 start. Speaking of Shell, White Powerade defeats What the Shell, 152.68 to 125.5. Shell earns the dubious honor of being the highest scoring loser this week in a loss to the highest scoring team of the week in Powerade. Powerade beat overall team projections this week by nearly 40 points thanks to a well-rounded attack. With usual starting quarterback Michael Vick on a bye, Powerade selected John Beck to fill in and hit the jackpot with 20.26 from the unheralded quarterback. Wide receiver Greg Jennings added a team-high 22.45. Running back Michael Bush beat projections with 11.6. Tight end Fred Davis tripled projections with 15.5. And kicker Matt Bryant added 13 this week, while the Cleveland defense scored an improbable 17, and defensive back Charles Tillman snagged 10. All of this overwhelmed Shell, who had a respectable score, but was held back by terrifically bad performances and key players out of the lineup. Running back LeGarrette Blount was injured, while running back Cedric Benson, wide receiver Stevie Johnson, and tight end Vernon Davis were all on byes this week. Shell did get a game-high 34.55 from elite quarterback Drew Brees and a combined 21.25 from wide receiver Darius Hayward-Bay and wide receiver Dwayne Bowe, but Shell's strength to this point this season has been running back, and this week it was a huge disappointment as Shell's 4 running backs averaged just 4.925 per player this week. Beanie Wells got hurt, Tashard Choice got overlooked, Maurice Morris was in a timeshare, and Maurice Jones-Drew was restrained to barely beating projections this week. All the while, the Tennessee defense didn't help Shell's cause, netting a -4 this week. The loss doesn't cost Shell his top billing in the Cavs division, but he now shares the division lead with Raging Boners at 5-2, and the win gives Powerade back-to-back wins, moving the team to 3-4 overall, 2 games out in the Aztec division. In an ugly matchup, Championship Cheese knocked off Greek Thunderball 108.23 to 76.74. Cheese survives a Jekyll and Hyde performance this week to beat the undermanned Greek. Cheese made one of the worst plays of the week, leaving quarterback Kevin Cobb's 20.18 on the bench in favor of 1.78 from fill-in quarterback Charlie Whitehurst. Cheese also got just 5.7 points from wide receivers Eric Decker and Robert Meacham, with Meacham seemingly being the only Saints player not to score a touchdown on Sunday night. Running back wasn't much better, as Ray Rice got just 5.5, Daniel Thomas just 5.8, and Ernest Graham got hurt and scored just 1.35 this week. Marion Barber was a pleasant surprise at running back for Cheese, however, getting 10.9, and tight end Antonio Gates returned from injury to score 12.65. Cheese relied on a very strong defensive performance this week with 18 points from the New Orleans defense, 10 from defensive back Jason McCourty, and 10.5 from fill-in linebacker Lamar Woodley. All the while, Greek once again failed to set a full lineup with 5 starters on a bye, including 4 of them on offense, and star wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald tucked away on the bench. Greek did have the 2 highest scores of the matchup with 27.54 from quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, and wide receiver Calvin Johnson chipped in 18.75. Greek scored just 21.5 total on defense, with a linebacker on a bye, a defensive lineman scoring 0, and a defensive back scoring 0.5. Cheese's victory keeps him in the hunt in the Wildcat division at 4-3 overall, a game back, while Greek falls to 2-5 as the league's lowest scoring team, and already a potential candidate for a franchise to be replaced due to inactivity in the upcoming 2012 season. In blowout action, Mustache Discount knocked off Lombardi's Ghost 139.98 to 97.13. Lombardi struggled this week without quarterback Tom Brady and wide receiver Wes Welker, both on the bench with byes, and the end result was a lopsided loss to Mustache Discount. Mustache had only 5 players beat projections, but 6 offensive players reached double digits for a balanced attack this week. Mustache had 3 Cowboys this week. Tony Romo, Des Bryant, and Dan Bailey, the kicker, combining for 43.73 this week, while Panthers, Steve Smith and Jonathan Stewart combined for 29.45. Lombardi went with Matt Moore at quarterback in place of Tom Brady and actually beat projections with 11.88. And wide receiver Early Doucette attempted to fill in for Wes Welker by nearly doubling his projections for 10.25 this week. Lombardi also got a game-high 25.86 from running back Darren Sproles, but running back Thomas Jones scored just 1.9, losing a good chunk of opportunities to Mustache's Jackie Battle in the Kansas City backfield. And Browns tandem Mohamed Massaquoi and Benjamin Watson combined for a disappointing 2.5 points for Lombardi. Mustache needed the win this week to stay just a game back in the Toro division at 4-3 overall, while Lombardi needed the win just as bad because the loss now means a lost opportunity to capitalize on Bear Jew's loss. But Lombardi still sits atop the division at 5-2 overall. Angry Arthritis is a winner finally, defeating Navajo's 149.52 to 97.81. Arthritis finally gets in the win column and in the process hands the banner for longest losing streak to the sliding Navajos in a blowout. Arthritis had key players out of the lineup this week, missing quarterback Eli Manning, running back Fred Jackson, and wide receiver Andre Johnson, all on the bench. Normally an 0-6 team with 3 key players would struggle to find replacements, but Arthritis put up one of the week's highest scores thanks to surprising sources. Quarterback Tim Tebow scored 23.59, running back DeMarco Murray scored a game-high 31.3, and wide receivers Roddy White and Mike Williams finally woke up to the tune of a combined 22.45. Navajos had only 4 players beat projections and 9 players scored 3 or less this week. Navajos got a team-high 24.8 from running back Matt Forte, but wide receivers Hines Ward, Derek Mason, and Devery Henderson all scored under 3 points each this week on teams that scored over 30 points in their respective games. Arthritis still has a tough road to hoe after the victory, sitting 1-6 overall and 4 games back in the Cavs division, and Navajos falls to 3 games out in the Aztec division at 2-5 overall after starting the season 2-0. And in the week's biggest blowout, Viva Football knocked off Big Ben's Revenge, 149.53 to 70.08. Viva Football may have started this season 0-5, but she now holds wins over both league champions after defeating Championship Cheese last week and defending champion Big Ben this week in Week 7's biggest blowout. Viva had the league's highest scoring player of the week with 42.65 from number 1 pick Arian Foster, but it's who Viva didn't start that may be most notable. Viva got a pedestrian 8 points from the New York Jets defense this week, while on the bench sat the Kansas City defense with a would-be all-time high for that position, 36 points sitting on the bench. But that 24-point swing wouldn't have made a difference given Viva's high scores from wide receiver Marcus Colston with 23.55, 16.01 from Josh Freeman at quarterback, and 11.95 from running back Sean Green to go with Arian Foster's big day at the same position. Big Ben got a team-high 18.55 from wide receiver Mike Wallace, but left 3 starters in the lineup on bye. Quarterback Curtis Painter had just 1.23. Emergency fill-in running back Belil Powell projected and scored 0. A healthy tight end Dallas Clark scored nothing, and injured defensive back Antoine Winfield was still in the lineup for 0. These factors led to the lowest score of the week for Big Ben, while on Big Ben's bench was 10 points with the Miami defense. He instead opted to start the Philadelphia defense on a bye, and 11.8 points from running back Mike Tolbert. Viva now rides a 2-week winning streak to pull even with Greek in the Toro division at 2-5, while Big Ben fades fast in the Wildcat division, now sitting 2-5, 3 games back of division leader Lombardi. Now we're sitting at halfway in the regular season, believe it or not. We are at Week 8 looking forward, and we're going to be switching the division matchups around. The Wildcat division will not spend the next 4 weeks taking on the Cavs division. We're going to have 5-2 Lombardi meeting 5-2 Boners in our marquee matchup of the week. Boners won the 2010 meeting between those two teams. 4-3 Cheese will take on 4-3 Wildcats. Wildcats won their meeting last season. 5-2 Shell will take on 2-5 Big Ben. Big Ben did win the 2010 matchup between those two teams. And 4-3 Bear Jew will take on 1-6 Arthritis Arthritis, though, beat Bearju last season. And in the other two divisions, Aztec versus Toro for the next 4 weeks. 5-2 AZ Chargers will meet 2-5 Navajos. AZ Chargers won their matchup last season. And 3 matchups that didn't take place last season. 5-2 Mojo will take on 2-5 Greek. 4-3 Mustache will meet 3-4 Amazons. And 3-4 Powerade will meet 2-5 Viva. So we hope to see you back next week for your Week 8 recap in the Tucson Tackle Dummies League.